welcome and thank you, and to all. And I'll be, I'll be more formal later in my salutation to the Deputy Prime Minister and the ministers that are with us, and of course our colleague Ambassador Rai. So I want to say welcome to all of you. I thank the members and the briefers for their continued flexibility in using this virtual Zoom format. So I want to remind you that this would be normally a webcast as an open meeting of the PBC. So we will be recording the meeting and posting the video on the PBSO website for interested observers. So I remind all participants to sign in with your name and mission affiliation, and to keep microphones on mute. We will be opening the speakers list after the briefers. So please use the chat window to request the floor, raise the hand, and we will endeavor to keep all participants updated on the speakers list. I tell my colleagues in New York that sometimes complain about how I manage the speakers list. I give priority to the PR, and that's why the speakers list moves around most of the time. So, but I just want to remind you of that, and that preference will remain this afternoon. Given the time difference, we have less time for this meeting that we would normally would, so we urge all participants to keep their intervention and brief and to the point, and to allow for a dialogue with the briefers. And so I just, I don't know if the Deputy Secretary General there, she will be here in and out, but we will, we'll see as we go. So I would like, so Excellencies, dear colleagues, I'd like to welcome you to this virtual informal meeting of the Peace Building Commission. The purpose of this meeting is to hear a briefing from the Deputy Secretary General on her visit to Papua New Guinea in early March, and to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the country. In addition to the DSG, we have several briefers from the government of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous Bougainville government. First one that I want to welcome is His Excellency Mr. Davis Stephen, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. I also want to welcome His Excellency Dr. Sir Puka Temu, who is the Minister for Bougainville Affairs from Papua New Guinea, and His Excellency Mr. Albert Pongo, who is the Minister for Post-Referendum Consultation and Dialogue, Autonomous Bougainville Government. And of course, our colleague, His Excellency, the Permanent Representative of Papua New Guinea at the United Nations, His Excellency Max Ufanen Rai, who will also take the floor for some closing remarks at the end of the meeting. This meeting marks the second PBC meeting on Papua New Guinea. If you recall, we last met in October 2019 in the run-up to the Bougainville referendum. We commend the efforts of the government of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous Bougainville government that put in place the conditions for a peaceful and orderly referendum and post-referendum period. We welcome this opportunity for a follow-up discussion on developments since the successful conclusion of the referendum, and are delighted to have the opportunity to be briefed by the Deputy Secretary General on her visit to PNG, which took place in early March. We're also pleased that we continue to build on previous PBC discussion on COVID-19 and the strong consensus within the PBC that this body has a vital role to play in supporting coherent, coordinated, and conflict-sensitive multilateral responses to the pandemic. So before giving the floor to our briefers, I would like to acknowledge a few additional participants to today's meeting. His Excellency Mr. Bertie Ahern, who is the chair of the Bougainville Referendum Commission, Mr. Mohamed Khaled Kiari, who is the Assistant Secretary General for Middle East, Asia, and Pacific, one of our former colleagues, welcome. Ms. Fiki Tamoela Aloa Katoa Utoi Kamanu, who is the High Representative for the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island development states. I want to also welcome Mr. Oscar Fernandez Taranco, who is the Assistant Secretary General for Peace Building Support. So the aim of today's discussion is to better understand ongoing peace building and political developments in Papua New Guinea, shed light on the impact of COVID-19 in the country, and generate ideas for how the PBC can help mobilize continued support for nationally owned peace building effort. So now, without further ado, I'll give the floor to the briefers. I see that the DSG is not in her chair yet. I know she was between two meetings. So I'll give the floor to Amina Mohamed when she will be in her seat. But for first, I'll give then the floor to remarks by His Excellency Mr. Davis Stephen, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. So, Deputy Prime Minister, welcome. We're so happy to have you with us, and you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair. This is Minister Temu here. I wish to pass the apologies of our Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable David Stephen, who is still on the way.
So Minister Temu, you're more than welcome to give your remarks if you don't mind. If you prefer to wait for the Deputy Prime Minister, we can wait for the Deputy Prime Minister. We're in your hands.
Okay, I'll give my initial remarks, and then if the Deputy Prime Minister comes, then he will then.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for accommodating us.
Yes, thank you very much. Would like to, on behalf of our government, wish to thank the Deputy Secretary General Amin Mohamed for visiting our country in March, and it was a great honor and privilege, and we were most honored to have hosted Her Excellency's visit, and I'm very, very sure that she really fully enjoyed the visit, and all of us were most privileged and honored indeed. I also had the privilege of meeting with her, and I thank her for giving me the opportunity. Myself and the Honorable Albert Punhau, my counterpart from Autonomous Region of Bougainville, and gave her an update on what is happening. But firstly, I also wish to acknowledge His Excellency Abedi Ahed, the Chairman of the Bougainville Referendum Commission, for the excellent work that the team had. And we are now into the final conclusion of the BRC, and we'll hand over the assets that were part of the process to the national government and autonomous Bougainville government. And we couldn't but thank everyone for the successful conduct of the referendum, and we're very, very proud that the referendum was very, very successful. Right now, as you may be aware, we have agreed through the last joint supervisory body meeting that we shall wait for the fourth autonomous Bougainville government election, which will take place around June. And so we have continued to maintain dialogue because of COVID through teleconferencing, myself and the Honorable Albert Punhau, who is also with us this morning, but he's based in Buka. And to ensure that I will want to stop here and welcome the Deputy Prime Minister who's coming in now, the Honorable David Stephen, who's just walked in, Chairman. And I will continue, and then later on he will then take over.
So we want, on behalf of the Peace Building Commission, I want to welcome you, Deputy Prime Minister. It's a privilege to have us. Thank you for joining us, Excellency Mr. Davis Stephen. So welcome, and thanks for making the time to be with us. And now I also see that the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohamed, has also joined us. So thank you, Deputy Secretary General, for joining us. And after the words of introduction, of comments made by Minister Temu, I will then ask you, Deputy Secretary General, to say a few words, and then we'll come back to the Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you. So, Minister Temu, you have the floor still. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And good morning, Deputy Secretary General. Good to see you again. I was just saying that the briefing that we had in Port Moresby during your visit, Deputy Secretary General, that we have agreed in the last joint supervisory body meeting that whilst we continue to maintain a dialogue with the autonomous Bougainville government through the JSB process, and having had COVID in the country, we also maintain teleconferencing between myself and Honorable Albert Punha, who is part of this conference. And so what we have agreed to is that we will now focus on the next election of the Autonomous Bougainville government, the fourth election, and following that, when the new leadership of the after the election is in, then we will begin the consultation process on the referendum result. And so I'm very, very happy to please that we are progressing the communication between us very, very well. We are now focusing on the election, which is to come next month in June. And the national government is making sure that the funding required is released on time, and so that the election will then be held. What we have progressed is that on our side, we are now finalizing the ratification process, and the next time we meet under the Joint Supervisory Body meeting, we will then affirm the ratification process, which will bring clarity both during the consultation process and when the referendum result is brought back to the National Parliament for final ratification. So that's where we are at the moment. We will tomorrow, we will be continuing the technical meetings that we have continue to have between Autonomous Bougainville government team and the I welcome the opportunity to be part of this conference and thank the Peace Building Commission for once again inviting us during this second opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Pukatimun, Mr. Minister. So I will now give the floor to the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohamed.
Great. Thank you very much, Ambassador Blanchard, and I hope that Excellencies, you will all forgive me because my experience in PNG, I really feel very strongly that I should give you the whole story, and maybe it won't be in depth, but at least what I had. So I'm going to take a little bit longer than a few remarks because it was an extraordinary experience, and I think, a story that deserves to be told. Your Excellency, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Stevens, it's wonderful to see you, and the colleagues who were so generous with their time there when I came. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, Canada, for inviting me to brief you on my recent mission. The fifth I've undertaken that has been focused on women, peace and security and development. And I was joined by the Executive Director of UNAIDS and the Secretary General's Youth Envoy. And this was extraordinary because we were able to divide up our trip at times to speak to different constituencies. We took the opportunity at that time of the mission to mark International Women's Day. We recognized all the celebrations were happening in New York, and so the decision was to go to a place where this would matter most for women in the world. And I believe that launching the UN-EU Spotlight Initiative to end violence against women and girls and discuss the challenges of gender equality alongside building peace and sustainable development and climate change was important at that time. I want to express my deep appreciation to the Prime Minister, James Marape, and the government and people of Papua New Guinea for their warm hospitality. You know, it really was an incredible interaction with the Deputy Prime Minister, with the Minister for Bougainville Affairs, the Minister for Post-Referendum Consultations and Dialogue on the Autonomous Bougainville Government. It was the last trip that I made before the world changed overnight as a result of COVID-19. And it is an unprecedented human crisis, as we continue to say, which has lent an increased urgency to our discussions today. And really, unless we act now, countries like Papua New Guinea risk losing the gains that they have made on sustainable development and peace, with an even more increased risk of renewed violence and conflict. And I was just speaking to the World Bank now when we were talking about what the risks were for a government that has to choose between suppressing a virus and dealing with the socioeconomic effects. It shouldn't have to be a choice. We need to do the both because the risks of unrest across that community are very high. Papua New Guinea is in some respects a microcosm of our broader global community. Most of its people continue to live in rural areas and villages with a rich traditional way of life, but in recent decades, the country has experienced both rapid population growth and rapid modernization. The Prime Minister is the first generation of his family to speak English. The Minister of Bougainville, and thank you for joining us today. I remember him telling me as a child that he walked for hours to see the aeroplane at Port Moresby, little thinking that he would later fly to New York to brief the Security Council on peace efforts in his country. And he had said to me, he's lived 1,000 years in one lifetime. And that is really a head-spinning rate of change. And we have to understand that that is not everyone that can do that. There is a certain evolution that we've all had the privilege of having, and yet in some countries we are pressing the fast-forward button. This is one of the world's most diverse countries, home to 800 ethnicities, 800 threads in the social fabric, who speak 12% of the languages of the world. And the diversity, while we see it as a strength, can also be a challenge, requiring really serious investment in communications and infrastructure. The diversity and the strength that we saw in our interconnected world, Papua New Guinea and countries like it that still embrace different cultural identities while building a sense of community as a whole, have really important lessons to teach all of us. Last year's successful referendum in Bougainville's future status was a significant milestone in the implementation of the peace agreement, and I congratulate all concerned, including His Excellency Mr. Bertier Hearn, Chair of the Bougainville Referendum Commission, who is also here with us today. I also commend the commitment to moving forward with the joint consultations. This is peace building in action, and it's inspiring to see, and I want to thank my colleagues in the Peace Building Office who have done an enormous job to try to make this work, and still more to do there. So, but this is, incredible steps. I was also really inspired to hear from women peace builders around the country, and they underlined the critical importance of women's equal participation. They shared their experiences around the impacts of tribal conflicts, also displacement, supporting victims of attacks, including rising numbers of sorcery-related attacks and of proliferation of arms in their communities. Amazing women that I was privileged to meet in what was a wonderful museum in Port Moresby. They also spoke of how they're building peace in their communities, and it was women who pushed their men to lay their arms down. And we must build on and invest in these capacities for peace building, but share them as well, because more and more we are going to see that women will be the ones that lead and sustain the peace. During our visit to Hela province, Governor Undealu presented a contribution of some $3 million to support the UN's Highlands joint program. This is amazing partnership coming from that level, and it focuses on supporting women, young people in playing greater roles in peace building, strengthening community resilience. And I thank the governor and assure him that we will do more than match these resources through the support of our bilateral donors, the Peace Building Fund and the Spotlight Initiative. This is really seeing ownership at the local level. On broader issues of gender equality, Papua New Guinea unfortunately does have some of the highest levels of violence against women and girls in the world. And 2 out of every 3 women will experience violence in her lifetime, double the global average. But it's worth noting that today, since COVID, we have seen gender-based violence go up 3-fold across the world. So this is not just Papua New Guinea. Across the world, we will have to address this scourge. We can't speak of peace and security when so many women and girls live in daily fear of violence. This global threat is compounded by the restrictions of movement that have been introduced in response to the COVID-19 epidemic. It's why the SG recently issued his appeal for peace in the home. It is more important than ever that we increase our investments, supports, and efforts to end all forms of gender-based violence. I was truly honored to help to co-lead a march in Port Moresby on International Women's Day, and spoke in the central marketplace as we launched the Spotlight Initiative to end violence against women. Incredible leadership by the mayor there, and I understand just most recently someone showed me a picture in the newspaper that was showing your recommitment as a government to make sure that our women and girls are protected. Impressed by the initiatives of the women-only buses, but it would be great to see a bus that was full of women and men who were equal partners. In the Highlands, it was for me a privilege to sit with women in our circles that we usually do traditionally, survivors of violence who told me about the poverty and insecurity that lie behind the abuse and violence, and that in too many places the ties of family and community have loosened, and we see them undermined and exacerbated by alcohol and substance abuse, and many other issues that really need to be put on the table when we look for the solutions to end this scourge. I welcome the Prime Minister's recommitment to implementing constitutional provisions on reserved seats for women in Parliament, because it really is about women and gender equality. Women's full and equal participation will go a long way to shaping the future for Papua New Guinea, and we stand ready to help them build in these efforts. We've been deeply impressed by the capacities and the potentials of the extraordinary young people that I met, who are eager to play a role in shaping their country, but often lack the opportunities to do so. Again, I will say that as you look at a community that is so diverse, we want to go as fast as possible to get to the aspirations that they have, but each step is worth having that conversation, or the intergenerational conversation that is often missing, is something that I was happy to share, at least in the experiences that I've had in my life. 58% of the population of Papua New Guinea is under 25 years old, so that's an enormous asset in the Pacific and in Papua New Guinea, and it's a unique opportunity to achieve sustainable peace. The peace that you lay is for their future, and their future is now. And so it really is an important bridge to try to make sure that we begin to take away the mistrust between young people and formal institutions. A lot of the solution lies in access to quality education, a decent employment, all of these under threat now with COVID-19. I hope that we take these into consideration, because COVID, as it is a crisis, we can benefit from that by looking for the opportunities to leapfrog and to do things that we wouldn't otherwise have done when we put these stimulus packages into place. There is, of course, the climate action agenda, and we commend the government for its ambition to increase its NDC and all the investments that need to go to do that. Despite its small land area, Papua New Guinea is estimated to contain between 5 and 10% of the world's biodiversity, with a significant proportion of world's rainforests, and I had the privilege of flying over those. And the UN is working with local and indigenous communities to advance sustainable development. We also had the pleasure of visiting the nature park and discussed the SDG roadmap with Papua New Guinea in its vulnerability to climate disruptions with our Environment Minister, Wera Mori. Conservation and climate, clearly huge. The restoration of the forests, the wetlands, these are huge opportunities that we can invest in, we can collaborate in across the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is causing terrible suffering around the world. The restrictions that are essential to contain it are threatening to cause more serious global depression in our living memory, and we urgently need to protect and support the most vulnerable, who will be hardest hit and who have the fewest resources to cope. Achieving the 2030 agenda for us is still the main frame. I saw that when I was in Papua New Guinea, that is at the center of the work that the UN country team is doing in collaboration with government, and commend the efforts by the government for that quick response to try to mitigate the worst impacts that we've seen. The prior challenges the country faced make the impact of the pandemic even worse than it might be. The recovery must therefore aim to address the vulnerability of Papua New Guinea to external shocks, and that really requires unprecedented solidarity. So if there's anything today, Ambassador Blanchard bringing everyone together to speak about this is, what do we mean by that solidarity? How will that play out for Papua New Guinea? What will the discussions be around this table that translate into defining that solidarity and investing in the solidarity so that we as the UN can continue to partner and to collaborate with the government and the people of Papua New Guinea in realizing that future of peace, of prosperity, of one where we find a balance between what we do as human beings and what we do with nature. So I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm so happy to see that table of friends and family from Papua New Guinea. Thank you very much, Ambassador Blanchard.
Thank you very, very much, Deputy Secretary General, and thanks for your comment. And you're actually, it was very interesting to hear your overview of the entire situation in Papua New Guinea from the perspective of that you had during your trip. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's very important. I now give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Davis Stephen. To Stephen, Deputy Prime Minister, thank you for being with us, and you have the floor.
Thank you indeed, and thank you for the opportunity to be in this briefing. Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed and distinguished members of the Peace Building Commission, I send you greetings once again from our beautiful country, Papua New Guinea. First of all, on behalf of the Prime Minister and our government, I wish to take the opportunity this morning to thank Madam Deputy Secretary General and the delegation for the recent visit to our country, for helping us to strengthen our commitment and focus on the global spotlight in our country. Basically, Your Excellency came at a time when we needed that encouragement, continuing effort to deal with issues especially affecting our women and daughters. And the timing was, it was just a blessing. It was timely that Your Excellency visited on the eve of the Women's Day commemoration, and the message and impact that your visit has had on our leadership, and that the cross section of our society has been very positive. In fact, Your Excellency now serves as a real model to many of our young women who you have referred to in your short stay with us, and many others who heard about your visit through our media. I would like to underline our government's commitment to strengthening representation of women in leadership, especially through the commitment for the implementation of a constitutional provision to establish 4 regional seats representing the 4 regions of our country, 4 women in parliament. We are hoping, we are quite ambitious in this regard, but we are hoping that if this very long and tedious constitutional process can be undertaken, we're hoping that the 2022 elections, national elections ahead of us, will be the first in which we see women representation for the 4 regions of our country. That would be a big milestone if it happens, but I wish once again to underline our commitment, which has been galvanized by Your Excellency's visit. Also, I take the opportunity to express our deepest appreciation to the United Nations for assisting us in our preparation and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As Your Excellency was saying, we were already in some difficulty, having taken over the government a year ago, in terms of restoring and refocusing and dealing with our persistent issues. And so the arrival of COVID-19 was not the good news that, it's not the same as the good news that you brought to us, Your Excellency. But we really, truly appreciate the support from the United Nations. And in this regard, the support came also in the way in which the resident director here, my good friend Luca, has managed to marshal and gather the support of all the other multilateral agencies that we have in our country today. So I think that a good outcome for us, a positive that I see, is once again the ability for us to work together, and especially in meeting outside support, the foreign aid that was coming into the country, connecting that properly with government agencies so that the response is purposeful. And I think that's been reflected in the outcomes, the results that we have seen in our cases, cases of our citizens and those of our people who have been traveling in to the country, and how we have managed it in keeping the numbers below 10. Once again, climate change is a critical issue that continues to face our country and its leadership always. As I said in our meeting, Your Excellency, climate change is already becoming climate crisis in our country today. So we really wish to seek your assistance in raising the profile on this issue with other partners to help us access the support that we will need to mitigate the effects of climate change. And yeah, Your Excellency referred to the vast oceans that surround the country. Well, those oceans are already becoming a cause of serious concern for some of our smaller islands outside the mainland. And so for us, our government continues to emphasize climate change. And I thank you for highlighting that in your statement this morning. The government is fully committed to the Bougainville Peace Agreement and the need for us to continuously consult with our partners in the autonomous Bougainville regional government. And as I speak to you, and I acknowledge Dr. Sepu Katemu, who leads the PNG government side, and his counterpart from Bougainville, who apparently is not here with us today, but is connecting from Buka, I am told. Well, thank you to technology. So yes, great work, great achievement, and the desire and commitment to ensure that this peaceful process that has led to where it is today will continue in terms of us doing the necessary work and consultation before the matter is brought to the attention of the National Parliament and at a time when the leaders have agreed. But once again, the United Nations and Peace Building Commission has played a critical role, and I cannot overestimate the value that the Commission has brought to this whole process. We are very optimistic that the narrative and the story that is being produced here will help in the overall efforts to maintain peace in the broader global community. I am particularly interested in the way the Bougainville peace process has once again shown us the need to cooperate in terms of the leadership within the region and globally, and to allow the Papua New Guinea initiative and Papua New Guinea leadership to address the issues and to create the traction and the momentum moving forward. Secondly, the way in which women in Bougainville and in Papua New Guinea generally, and in the Melanesian region throughout our Pacific region have come together. So the women's role in how Bougainville peace process has gravitated so far is really significant. And Your Excellency, I'm happy that you were able to highlight it. Yes, so apart from Bougainville, we have had our issues in terms of natural calamities, and in the 2018 earthquakes that hit the highlands region of our country, and that's where the Prime Minister is from. Your Excellency, I'm very grateful on behalf of government that the peace building priorities of the United Nations have also extended up that way. And as you have acknowledged this morning, the leadership of the country is responding, like sometimes it's the response to a global positive leadership. And so Governor Unialo Fela province reaction now in terms of the cash contribution to the United Nations joint program, I think it's also a milestone. Instead of us leaders trying to do it ourselves, we now admitting that there is a better way, a better approach, and us contributing directly so that it can be delivered through the auspices of the collaboration led by the United Nations. So once again, I thank the Peace Building Commission and the fund for the allocations made to Bougainville and to the Highlands so far. I hope that the COVID has now provided the incentive and the motivation to give us further funds, greater and more significant sums. But we appreciate all the help so far. Let me close my remarks by expressing my great appreciation for the support and the partnership with the entire UN country team in Papua New Guinea, and once again re-emphasizing the significance of the visit of the Deputy General Secretary General, the first highest ranking leader of the United Nations administration to visit us since we joined the United Nations in 1975. That's a milestone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you. Yes, I see that Amina is applauding you. We're all applauding you and thanking you. And thanks for your comments with respect to the Deputy Secretary General. We're all inspired by her in New York. So we're so glad that she could work her magic back in your country in Papua New Guinea and inspire an entire generation of young women and girls, and I'm sure men as well. And so thank you for mentioning that. But also, I want just to say one thing about what you said, that your call, that you hope that the world will think about. You mentioned hopefully in the difficult circumstances that you're going through with the COVID-19, that you're hoping that you would have access to more money in some ways. And I just want to tell you that I'm as a representative of Canada, but also as the co-chair of the Group of Friends on Financing for Development. I can understand where you come from, and that my country has been arguing for debt relief for quite a while now, and we were part of the first group that asked for a debt standstill. But we need to do more than that, and Prime Minister Trudeau has said it as well. And this is, as Prime Minister Motley from Barbados said, this is about life and livelihood. There's a healthcare crisis, but there's also a gigantic, most important economic crisis since the great, the recession of 1929. So this is way bigger than 2008 and 2009. And there are vulnerabilities in countries, and the world is only as strong as the weaker links in the world. We've just seen that. And so we need to rethink the way we look at all of this. And so you have allies and friends, and I think the United Nations is a great place to say that. So now, thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for the inspiration and the push, and your call is being heard. I want now to give the floor to the Minister for Post-Referendum Consultation and Dialogue for the Autonomous Bougainville Government, His Excellency Mr. Albert Pongho. Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, Your Excellencies. United Nations Deputy General Secretary Amina Mohammed, I would like to thank you on behalf of the people of Bougainville, the President of the Autonomous Region of Bougainville, Dr. Chief John Momis, for coming to Papua New Guinea and seeing us as we meaningfully engage with you at Holiday Inn at the airways with Honorable Sepu Katemo. Thanks for coming to Papua New Guinea. Yes, we are committed in Bougainville to implement the peace agreement, and so as such, we have successfully implemented the Bougainville referendum, which I can say thank you to all of us, to the United Nations, to every contributing countries for the support that you have given to both countries, Papua New Guinea and the autonomous region of Bougainville, to implement that successful referendum. Yes, that is the beginning of a process that we need to conclude by way of consulting over the result of the referendum, which the result was 98% on independence. And this engagement with the government of Papua New Guinea and us with the autonomous region of Bougainville have been a very successful engagement. And the two governments are committed, and we would like to thank you for the support that you have given in the Peace Building Commission, from the Peace Building Commission in relation to the Peace Building Fund that we used to implement that successful referendum. We will need further support in the post-referendum consultation phase right up to the ratification. This consultation will be done, as you know, Bougainville is way up, far away from Papua New Guinea. We will need some funding for us to engage in meetings during the consultation phase, and also to fund the awareness to make sure the people of Bougainville and Papua New Guinea are aware fully in the implementation of the peace agreement in relation to the post-referendum consultation and dialogue, and also the ratification process. We will also need some funding to help with the moderator. The moderator has been agreed to by the two governments that we will have a moderator when we are consulting over the independence vote that has been taken by the people of Bougainville. So the moderator has not been agreed to by the two governments as said. In the next CCP meeting, which we now term it as CCP, from CSP now has been termed as CSP, we will resolve in who the moderator will be, who will be moderating while we are consulting over the result of independence. So those are very important assistance that we think would be also given to both of our countries, both of us, Bougainville and Papua New Guinea, to implement the peace agreement to the fullest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Pongo, for those words. And now I want to thank the briefers for their presentations, and I want to open the floor for discussion. I just want to remind the Peace Building Commission members to use the chat to request the floor so that we can manage the speakers list. And we will keep members updated via the chat on the status of the speakers list as much as we can with the consideration I gave at the outset. Member states are kindly reminded to limit their intervention to more than 2 or 3 minutes so that we can allow time for the briefers to respond. So the first speaker on my list will be His Excellency Mr. Bertie Ahern, who is the chair of the Bougainville Referendum Commission. Mr. Ahern, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman Blanchard, and I very much appreciate you having us at this meeting. Can I say it's a great honor to be listening to the Deputy General Secretary, and of course the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister Pukutemu, and Mr. Albert Pongwao. I think we have been very happy in all our work in the Bougainville Referendum Commission. We're wrapping it up at this stage. We're technical, audit, administrative work. We hope to be finished by the 31st of May. That was delayed because of COVID-19 a bit, but I do want to just acknowledge to this meeting the work for the last few years of Thomas Webster, Robert Degara, Pectilius Gamatu, Ruby Marinka, Robert Nazare and George Manu, and of course my own colleague Patrick Hines, who is on this meeting but has been with me throughout the last few years. I also want to acknowledge the huge amount of effort and support that we got, Deputy Prime Minister, from all your colleagues. It's very much appreciated. And of course, without the help of the UN, Gianluca and Rui and all our colleagues, it would not have been possible for us to be able to administer and successfully carry out the referendum. And neither do I believe that the post-referendum work will be possible without the continued involvement and commitment and funding of both the UN team and the donor countries. It is not easy, I know, with all of the difficulties in the region and worldwide, but to achieve the objective of what the Bougainville Peace Agreement is and the wider issues in Papua New Guinea, it requires the support, the commitment of the United Nations and of the team and of the donor countries as well. I just want to assure you that as we complete our work as a Bogan Referendum Commission, we'll stay engaged in whatever capacity to support the work. And I really, if I can say, and just I know I'm nearly on my time, but if I can just say I'm so pleased and want to congratulate Sir Pukutemu and Albert Bugma for the way that they have taken everything forward over the last year, the engagements, the interaction, the work under direction of the Prime Minister and President Momus. It has been outstanding, and I think their sincerity and generosity and their huge commitment has certainly meant that the peace process will continue to develop into the post-referendum phase. So my thanks to you, Chairman. My thanks, I know how much it meant that the Deputy General Secretary of the United Nations, the most senior person ever to be in Papua New Guinea, took time to be there, to meet people. And I know from my own experience, and particularly out in the countryside, in the rural areas, the involvement of the women's group, the way they helped us to mastermind a vote of 85% with difficult terrain. They're wonderful women, tremendous organisers, tremendous commitment, and I think the respect and honour that you gave them will be something that will be long remembered. So again, thank you very much, and an honour to join this meeting, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aaron. Thanks for your work and your leadership. And I'll give you the list of, I'm going to give preference to the region, and then, but I'll make one exception for some reasons that he has explained to me. I'll give the floor first to the ambassador from Dominican Republic, and after that, the permanent representative from New Zealand and permanent representative from Australia. Then I'll go to Egypt. So, Ambassador Singer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mark. I thank the speakers for their comprehensive briefing, today's high-level officials' participation, both from the government of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous government of Bougainville, demonstrates the commitment to peace. The visit of the UN high-level officials, composed by 3 women and led by Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohamed, also reflects the level of attention being paid to the country and to the referendum. The inclusive manner in which the referendum was carried and the fact that there was no petition against its results clearly indicates a spirit of close collaboration going forward. Fulfilling the 2001 peace agreement almost in its entirety, putting an end to a decade of civil war. Let me take this opportunity to commend the role played by former Prime Minister of Ireland, Bertie Ahern, overseeing the referendum. Nevertheless, with it comes complex work lying ahead. It will be a lengthy process, and it is essential that both leadership instill the trust needed to its people to arrive at a decision. We urge the government of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous government of Bougainville to continue consultations and peaceful to finalize details of this relation. Despite the challenges that COVID-19 poses, we praise you for continuing consultations of the referendum. We look forward for the election to take place in June so that the negotiation timeline is not further affected. The process needs to be advanced. We believe once structures are established, it should be accompanied by key institutions such as those pertaining to health services, education, and the rule of law. It is fundamental that during the negotiations, the referendum results are respected and the specific needs of the people of Bougainville are addressed in any outcome. To ensure this, it is important to establish a mechanism that guarantees a transparent, democratic, and inclusive dialogue. This is central to the transformational results and growth into the future. The meaningful and full participation of women and youth as key partners is vital in this regard. The Peace Building Fund and the World Bank have been key supporters. This is critical, not just from the health standpoint, but from the socioeconomic perspective, so that the country can better protect the most vulnerable and poor, support business and bolster economic recovery. Being Papua New Guinea and the lower middle income countries could face several structural setbacks to achieve the SDGs as a result of the impact of the pandemic, including addressing tribal clashes and violence to its fight against climate change. We echo DSG Amina Mohamed on the need to further progress on women's political representation in Papua New Guinea. Gender equality and women empowerment is one of the main foundations to achieve peace, and therefore we commend the commitment by the government of Papua New Guinea, including by taking the issue in Parliament and establishing a range of protection services for women and girls. The visit of the Secretary General's envoy on youth has been likewise important. Young people expressed their interest to be more engaged in decision-making and to be at the forefront of Papua New Guinea's development. We applaud Prime Minister Marape's commitment to support young Papuans. Recognizing young representation and leadership is essential. It is crucial that the UN, including the Peace Building Commission, continues accompanying Papua New Guinea going forward, playing also its neutral role in the process. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Singer. Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to the permanent representative of New Zealand, Ambassador Craig Hawke. And I just want to actually salute Craig, New Zealand's announcement for your contribution to the Peace Building Fund. Thank you very much. That's great leadership. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Marc-Andre, and to colleagues in the Peace Building Commission. Thank you very much for convening this very important meeting. I'd like to extend warm Pacific greetings to all those in Port Moresby, and good morning to the Deputy Prime Minister and Ministers, and also those in Buka. It's great to see you, and thanks for being part of this very important conversation. And also to acknowledge the former Commission Chair, Bertie Ahern, for his fantastic work around the referendum. I really want to start by also acknowledging the Deputy Secretary General and your visit to Papua New Guinea, and to say that we really appreciated engaging with the Inland team on the ground, and sometimes visits shift the dial. And your visit, particularly around gender, and demonstrating, I think, and having those conversations on women in leadership, and now backed up by the Deputy Prime Minister, are the conversations, I think, that shift the dial. So I want to acknowledge that here today. I have 3 quick points. First of all, I want to pay tribute to the Papua New Guinea government and the autonomous Bougainville government on your commitment to sustaining peace. You've really demonstrated this through the peaceful conduct of the non-binding referendum this year. We know there's more work to be done, but it was great to hear the conversations that are already happening today. And also, we really encourage both sides in your spirit to to take this forward and find a Melanesian consensus. Second comment is that you can always count on New Zealand's support. We will work with you from our diplomatic, our trade, our economic relationship, and also our development cooperation relationship. It's got a focus around COVID at the moment, but those broader systemic and complex issues will always be there with you. My final comment really goes to the point and the challenge, I think, that the Deputy Secretary General made around solidarity. And I guess I wanted to say that New Zealand's perspective is that, one, we should put the Papua New Guinea government at the centre of any partnership. And secondly, the international community needs to crowd around their development agenda. And within that, New Zealand very much sees a crucial role for the United Nations, building up your good officers in terms of the political processes, but also the work that the Peacebuilding Commission, the Peacebuilding Fund is doing in the Highlands. So we really call on the Peacebuilding Commission, the Peacebuilding Support Office and the Peacebuilding Fund, donors and the wider international community to really crowd in around the Papua New Guinea government's development priorities and make sure that we work coherently and in the spirit of cooperation. So I thank you very much, Marc-Andre.
Thank you very much, Craig. Now I'll go to Australia to Ambassador Mitch Fifield. Please, Mitch.
Thanks very much, Marc-Andre, for convening today. And hello to the Deputy Prime Minister, to ministers and colleagues, Prime Minister Ahern, and DSG Amina. Great to see you all. Australia, for our part, we very much welcome the Peacebuilding Commission's engagement with Papua New Guinea, and in particular the visit of the DSG and her delegation in March, which I think was really important that it coincided with the celebrations for International Women's Day. We commend very much and support the ongoing efforts to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls through the EU UN-sponsored Spotlight Initiative in its partnership with the PNG government. And I'm pleased that the DSG was able to hear firsthand about the contribution that women in PNG make in peace building, in community cohesion, and the process of reconciliation. Women are powerful mediators, powerful peace builders, powerful leaders, and it's important that those voices from the Pacific have had a chance to be heard. Also pleased that the DSG was able to visit Hela province during her trip. And we welcome the PBF's work in Hela in support of reconciliation and community cohesion. As a signatory witness to the 2001 Bougainville Peace Agreement, Australia remains a close partner of the PNG and the autonomous Bougainville governments. We recognise that Bougainville's future political status is a matter for the two governments to resolve, and commend the ongoing efforts to continue post-referendum negotiations. At the request of the two governments, we're ready to provide assistance and support for the conduct of the 2020 autonomous Bougainville election within the limitations of the current COVID-19 state of emergency. And just in conclusion, COVID-19 we know represents a global challenge, and the Pacific region has felt its impacts. And I just want to acknowledge and commend the efforts of the PNG government and its people in limiting the spread of the virus. In conjunction with the PNG government and other international partners, including the UN, we're mobilising assistance to support where we can. I'd be interested to hear more about the UN's ongoing efforts to respond to COVID-19 in PNG, including ways to further mitigate risks to women and girls. Thanks very much, Marc-Andre.
Thank you very much, Mitch. There's been a bit of a change. You see, I should never announce it so much in advance. So there are quite a few regional countries that, country from the regions that have now put themselves on the list. So I will try to be as fair as possible. I'll now go to the chair of the Pacific Island Forums, the permanent representative ambassador of Tuvalu, Ambassador Samuelu Lalonio. Samuelu? Unmute yourself, Samuelu. You're muted.
Okay. Thank you.
Now it's good. Now it's very good. We hear you.
Thank you, Mark. My apologies. I'm not able to have my camera on. But thank you once again, Mark, for convening this very, very important meeting. And I also wish to thank the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, for sharing that very, very inspiring report of a visit to our region and Papua New Guinea. Let me also thank the supporters and donors of the Peace Building Commission and the fund, whose work has been very important where we need safety and security and to save lives. It is a pleasure to listen to the Deputy Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea and the Minister of Colonial Affairs and others who have shared some very, very enlightening information on the work of the Peace Building Commission. Just to add on to what was said by my regional colleagues, Craig from New Zealand and Phil from Australia, our traditional development partners in the region, Australia and New Zealand, our multi-year contribution to PPF and our engagement with the fund and the PBC, the Peace Building Commission, is something that our region is proud of and value. As a reflection of the principles and visions that our Pacific leaders agreed to in the Boyd Declaration. In addition to Papua New Guinea, we have benefited from the fund in initiatives in the Solomon Islands. And now we have projects on climate security and resilience in the atoll nations of Kiribati, Republic of Marshall Islands, and Tuvalu. So I would like to conclude by wishing all the best to the post-referendum consultations in Papua New Guinea and Bougainville, and that as a region, we value and we look forward to further engagement with the fund and the Peace Building Commission. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Samuelu. And I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Fiji, Satyendra Prasad. Satyendra.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marc-Andre and Chair. Morning to Deputy Prime Minister and ministers and officials both in Mosby and Buka. PNG used to be my former home until 2 years ago when I was with the Papua New Guinea Governance Facility just before this job. So it's fantastic to reconnect with many of you. I wanted to make 2 or 3 comments and reinforce what our regional colleagues have said. In addition to that, stress the point that for the UN itself, this has been a fine moment to demonstrate the utility and usefulness of the Peace Building Commission in what many of us think is a fantastic peace process underway. Granted, there are many more steps, but this is UN demonstrating its capabilities and capacities at its best. You brought into play one of the finest peacemakers of our times in Prime Minister Betty Ahern, provided fine technical assistance to the referendum process, and the whole region has coalesced around this. So the referendum and the steps so far a showcase of what the United Nations in its good day, in its best moment, brings to the table. And for Papua New Guinea, it is also a fantastic way of showing to the world what the country is capable of giving a peace process that is truly exemplary in so many dimensions. And one of them that was brought much more forcefully through the DSG's visit was the central role that women and young people have played in the peace process at all stages the play. I think that is truly remarkable, truly not unique, but truly remarkable and outstanding statement. And great kudos to you, Deputy Prime Minister, and the government of Papua New Guinea for really emphasizing that. So that's second point. Some of our colleagues have said that there are many, many more steps. The peace process is anchored in a constitutional process. Nevertheless, the world has become, as Deputy Secretary General has said, much more complicated. I do not fully understand. I would really like to hear a lot more on how has a COVID context complicated the peace process. The economic and social shocks that it has generated will put strain and stresses on the system, and that we need to be mindful that the second chances have somewhat changed and perhaps become more delicate, and it would be good for us to reflect on this going forward. And thirdly, just on behalf of Fiji, we are with Papua New Guinea and the peace process fully via the forum setting through the Melanesian Spearhead Group. And we look forward to a great and very successful journey ahead. Thank you very much, Chair, for inviting me to participate in this meeting as well.
Thank you very much, Satyendra. And now I'll go to Japan, after that Egypt and Morocco. But the permanent representative of Japan, Ambassador Shikane, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Marc-Andre, for convening this very important meeting. And I should say, we really appreciate DSG Amina Mohammed, your leadership in dealing with the situation in PNG, and welcome Deputy Prime Minister and Ministers from PNG. Well, regarding COVID-19, unlike other parts of the world where the pandemic is now going to jeopardize human security, strict measures taken by the government of PNG and the autonomous Bougainville government have so far limited the infection to only sporadic cases in the country. But I think we should continue to pay close attention to the situation, since the health system is not resilient enough. PNG, like many other countries in the region, including some LDCs, is not a part of the UN's Global Humanitarian Response Plan, GHRP, launched in March and updated last week. However, we should support the efforts by both governments, since whether they will succeed in containing the virus or not could be a test for gaining people's trust. And which trust is key to peace and stability. And from that viewpoint, we have made a contribution of over $1 million through UNICEF and IFRC in March to provide medical equipment and to support capacity building of health workers and awareness raising activities in the PNG, including Bougainville. We also provided recently a bilateral grant for the improvement of healthcare center in Bougainville. Well, Japan welcomes that the referendum in Bougainville took place peacefully last November. And I'm very much glad to hear from Deputy Prime Minister that his firm commitment to the peace process. Japan supported the process through UNDP by providing the necessary equipment and technical support. We also welcome PNG government's initiative to promote reconciliation. Well, we hope that the presidential and general elections in Bougainville will take place according to the timeline announced 2 weeks ago. We should not let COVID-19 or other natural disasters disrupt the consultation between the governments of Port Moresby and Buka, which should start soon after the elections. We will continue to support where we can the peace process side by side with people of PNG and Bougainville through and in collaboration with the UN system. This is peace building in action, as has been said by Amina, where the humanitarian development peace nexus is at test. I think we cannot and should not let it fail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Shikane. Now to Egypt, and I'm sorry, Ambassador Edris, I presented you with a false mirage before, so now I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman Marc-Andre. Highly appreciate it. Most welcome, DSG, for your presence and for your hard efforts to support Papua New Guinea, including your personal visit in March. So really highly appreciated, and most welcome to the high-level officials from Papua New Guinea participating in this meeting. I think this meeting very significant because it highlights that at the time of crisis, countries in need are not forgotten, but they are remembered and getting the attention and support. So thank you, Chairman Marc-André, for this. The effort which has been exerted reaching the referendum, the both effort of the government of Papua New Guinea and the government of Bougainville, resulting in the referendum in December 2019 was a very important step, and the other steps which followed really paved the way for path for peace and security in the country. The role of the regional countries is very much commended in providing the necessary support. So there is highly important and appreciated role of the countries of the region. And COVID in itself is a crisis. However, it exacerbates other crises. So in the current situation, it's important to mitigate the crisis of COVID, but at the same time, preserve the achievements which have been made on the political path. And in this case, would like to also to know how to get the assurance how much the peace path is durable and they will not be so much affected by the pressure caused by the COVID crisis. The other thing is based on the national priorities, and always the national priorities and the national ownership is always reinforced. In the view of the officials in Papua New Guinea, what is currently the most important and the pressing needs which the PBC should provide and should present to our brothers and sisters in Papua New Guinea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. Thank you. And now I want to give the floor, and I want to thank him for his patience. Omar Ilal, who is the permanent representative of Morocco.
Thank you very much. Five comments. The first one is to my dear sister, DSG, Amina Mohammed. First of all, to thank her for her very comprehensive and informative report about her visit. She said that her visit was an extraordinary visit. I would add that her visit was a historical visit for the people of PNG and a historical visit for the UN also, because her visit created a momentum for the political process and pushed to negotiation in the right way. And thanks to her advice, thanks to the role he played, and also the light she put on the role of women and youth. That was all these ingredients that helped in the end to have very successful discussions there. And I would just add on personal note that I have been in PNG 20 years ago, and like her, I fall in love with this country because his people is very warm, very courageous. Second observation is that we are taking with a lot of appreciations note of the assurances that have been given by the Deputy Prime Minister on the ongoing process, on the maintaining a dialogue, on going to the election next June, and having real discussions on the result and the post-referendum. I would like to say also that we pay tribute to PNG because if this referendum could take place fairly, peacefully, democratically, it's thanks to the leadership of the PNG, because they took their commitment, they respect them, and they managed to organize very fair referendum that everybody recognized the result. My third observation is about the appeal of the Vice Prime Minister. He said that we need your help. We need that you assist us, because PNG now, as it has been said by previous speakers, is facing two challenges: COVID-19 and the political process. And they need more technical assistance, more solidarity, more cooperation. They are, I would not say that they are in difficulty, but they are in very difficult time, as all the countries of the region. That's why we should not forget that. We should not focus only on the political process. We should also focus about how we can help this country to solve the daily problem of its citizens. My fourth observation is linked to the third one, is the cooperation between Morocco and PNG. We are very far geographically, but we are close as friends, because we have students from PNG in Morocco. We have honorary consul in Rabat representing the PNG. We just 2 months ago, last February, we received a high-level delegation of 10 people led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the third forum of Pacific Island countries and Morocco. And during this visit, we agreed with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of PNG about a program or roadmap of cooperation in agriculture, technical cooperation, tourism, climate change, education, development, all that areas. And they would like to say to our friends in PNG that Morocco will stand with them. Morocco will implement the roadmap and the plan of action that have been agreed in Laayoune last February, and Morocco will be listening to any kind of needs that PNG would like to have. My last observation is the importance of the role of PBC. I think PBC showed that it has a real crucial role in solving crisis, in assisting countries in very difficult time, in also helping to reduce tension and to maintaining the momentum of the political process. And I think the PBC has also now to play more role than the one it played before the political process. Now PBC needs to have more economic role for and development role for the PNG. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ilal. Thank you very much, Ama. I will now give the floor to I think it is, I just saw on the screen. So it's the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Ireland, Geraldine, Ambassador Bernaison. Geraldine.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much indeed, Marc-Andre. It's great to be here, and I wanted to salute in particular the Deputy Prime Minister and the ministers with us in Bougainville and Port Moresby today. This is really a real honour to be in your presence and to hear from you as we pay tribute to you, really, I have to say, as you pass that great milestone of a successful referendum. It's really an exemplary, an example for all of us globally. So I'm delighted to be here with you. You know, if we weren't living in these strange times, we listened to remarks today, everything threaded through with COVID, we would be almost exclusively focusing on the next steps post-referendum. And I think it's important that we don't allow COVID in itself to distract us or indeed to deflect us from the really critical work that you have still underway and to deal with in that task fundamentally of sustaining peace. I wanted to recognize the resilience as an island person myself and the diligence of the people of Bougainville, of course of our UN colleagues, and particularly I have to say an honour to be in the presence of my former Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern, who I think by all recognition conducted a wonderful chairmanship of the Referendum Commission. We realise that result of the Referendum Commission's work, not just in the way the people of Bougainville reacted, but also the way the referendum was conducted, really built up a strong recognition of a transparent, credible referendum that stands you in excellent stead as you move now into this post-referendum phase. We fully recognise that this is a complex and sensitive phase. We've heard you say that today. We think that the clarity of the result you had really has raised expectations amongst your own people. And so we're very happy to see that the work on the post-referendum intergovernmental consultation is getting underway. It's a process that's really important at this stage, and in parallel to that, we hope we'll see good communication and regular exchange with your own people in Bougainville and PNG, so that that common understanding that you need now going forward will really be embedded in the community for what the next steps are that lie ahead. I also, of course, have to recognize that you're dealing with those next steps in a difficult environment. In all our countries, COVID has affected our communities fundamentally and has inevitably heightened stress in the public mind. So the planned face-to-face dialogue that you had, I know originally for this phase of the process, won't actually be possible. So I hope that you will be able to continue with the outreach to the general public, even in these difficult circumstances. I don't need to say to you today, I think, that Ireland has kept faith with you in Bougainville for some time, not just in the wonderful work of Bertie Ahern, but I think also in Bertie bringing with him the real in-depth knowledge of what effort peace building engages and needs, really, as you move from one phase to another in embedding a successful peace process. And we've also been happy financially to support you, and that will continue. Want to tell you that we are a constant advocate for you in Bougainville when we go to Brussels at the EU table, and that will also continue. In the context of COVID, the Irish government has made special provision for the small island states in the Asian Development Bank. And I know that you're aware of the arrangements we're making to make sure that the support we give you in PNG is fit for purpose. Finally, I wanted to say that we know that the attention of the international community is that almost unquantifiable, important political fillip that you need going forward for the next stages in this process. In Ireland, we recognise how important our international partnership was to the success of our peace process. Absolutely the case we recognise for you today. And I have to say, if I may conclude with this, dear sister Amina, that I wanted to stand up and applaud you as you spoke, not for the first time, I admit, Amina, but as you spoke today about your work and your experience during your visit to Bougainville. I'm a consistent advocate for taking the role of women into account when we speak at the Peace Building Commission. In fact, I never take the floor here without raising the role of women, but it's very rare that we have an example of someone, one of us, a non-man, Amina, if I may share that comfort zone with you today, who was on the ground and who was meeting grassroots women, the women who actually help you to deliver on a day-to-day basis, not just the peace process, but I will say in the context of COVID, who will now be critical to maintaining what is for now a good pre-surge phase, as we heard on the ground. So I wanted to reassure you that you have in me a friend as an Irish ambassador, but certainly as a woman, a real advocate and supporter for everything you've done, and delighted to be here with you, and can only wish you all the best and know that we will keep faith with you every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. Thank you very much. And thanks, Ireland, for your leadership with Papua New Guinea, really. Thank you very much and congratulations. So I want to now give the floor to the DPR of Norway.
Thank you very much, Marc-André. Thank you for convening us. And many thanks also to the very distinguished panelists that we've heard from. We're also very grateful to the Deputy Secretary General for carrying out her important visit, and I join others in thanking you for this report. Norway commends the government and people of Papua New Guinea for its commitment and efforts in enabling a peaceful and historic referendum of the autonomous region of Bougainville. I'm encouraged by the interventions by the ministers that we just heard from, and your commitment to peace and strong support for the United Nations and multilateral cooperation. Norway is fully in line with you. We welcome the close cooperation of the government of Papua New Guinea and the leadership of the Bougainville Constitutional Transitional Government have with the UN Resident Coordinator. We encourage continued close collaboration on this matter, both in New York and in Port Moresby, to ensure that this process remains on track. Norway would like to emphasize the importance of the role of women in the peace process and beyond, as my predecessor Geraldine also, enabling inclusive growth and sustainable peace. So much key to that. There's a low number of coronavirus cases in PNG, and we commend the government's efforts in combating the further spread of the virus. The international community stands with the PNG in these trying times. We need to address the consequences of the coronavirus with long-term development perspective in mind. The UN has a key role to play in this regard. Norway suggested a new UN multi-donor trust fund to assist countries in need in mitigating the social economic impact of the crisis. So far, we've pledged an initial contribution to the fund of about $15 million. Now, we're happy to see that the PNG is part of the first call for proposals from this fund, although an intervention for COVID-19 response in the Western province. Norway continues to be a major supporter of the Peace Building Fund. We commend the PBF's critical support to prevention and sustaining peace, and we support the re-eligibility of the PNG for PBF support. So let me finally, once again, thank you, the distinguished panelists, for the dedication and efforts for peace, to fight COVID-19, and for the development and well-being of the PNG. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'll give the floor to the Deputy Permanent Representative of Germany, Ambassador.
Thank you, Marc-Andre, and welcome to ministers, the DSG colleagues, and of course all our distinguished briefers. Thank you for convening this important meeting, Marc-Andre. Lots has been said, so I can be relatively brief. I would just want to make three very brief comments. First of all, also from our side, congratulations to the people and government of Papua New Guinea for a very peaceful and successful referendum in December last year. This was a great success. And what also was very successful, that immediately after the referendum, the two governments continued the dialogue initiated by the post-referendum planning task force. We do understand that that some meetings were deferred due to the COVID-19 impacts, but we hope that this can be resumed very, very soon. Secondly, on the very important and crucial role of the United Nations. The UN has played a very key role in facilitating and supporting the political dialogue and reconciliation. The DSG's visit has been mentioned by many colleagues, was very important, and says a lot about the importance of this process. And of course, also the PBF played a very important role in the Peace Building Commission, but also the PBF by a lot of projects. My third and last point is that I want to say that we, Germany, welcome the continued efforts to advance the political dialogue and to build peace. We commend in particular the role of the Peace Building Fund in that regard. And let me conclude by saying that the German government has supported the referendum process. But what is maybe even more important today is to say that we will remain committed to support the efforts of the government of Papua New Guinea and the autonomous Bougainville government that follow the referendum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. I'll now give the floor to the delegate of the European Union.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, and colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you so much. On behalf of Ambassador Olof Skog, I'll be speaking on behalf of the European Union. Just four brief points from my side. First, to commend the excellent relation that the EU nurture with PNG on especially the negotiation on the post-Cotonou Accord, and to highlight that the EU aligns itself with the political priorities identified by the government in Port Moresby, especially in terms of good governance, rule of law, fight against corruption and violence, but also the support to the women in all these priorities. Second, I'd like to emphasize the fact that the European Union will be there in the post-referendum phase, and to accompany all the people in the Bougainville peace process. And in that regard, we highlight the importance of holding consultations for the maintenance of peace and security, as well as for the credible and transparent electoral process that will take place in August 2020. Third point, in terms of COVID-19, I want to emphasize that the European Union has already allocated 120 million euros through the Cotonou ACP package, but also 22 million euros through the WHO to come in support of the people of the Pacific region, and especially of Papua New Guinea. And last but not least, as a concluding remark, I'd like to emphasize the call of DSG Mohammed for the Spotlight Initiative, and emphasize the importance that the attention, I should say, that we pay of the impact of COVID-19 on the situation of violence against women and girls, and invite other participants and other members of the United Nations to join this Spotlight Initiative as the most comprehensive platform to fight that plague. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now I will, I think I will forego my the comments I had in my national capacity to give time for, because there's one person that said wanted to reply to something. So I just will limit myself, Deputy Prime Minister, to express the best regards of my Prime Minister, who, when Prime Minister Trudeau had fond memories of when he attended the APEC summit that you hosted recently. And so I just want to say, to convey his best regards and say that, you know, we are friends and members of many things together. And, you know, we have a close partnership, not only in APEC, but in the Commonwealth, the UN, and other forums. And we both share the Pacific Ocean. So, and we are a main donor of the Peace Building Fund. We were happy to see that the Peace Building Fund is working very well with you, and also of many other multilateral instruments. And bilaterally, we have we have sustained relationship in many ways. And I just want to say that from both economically and socially, we have historic ties. So I just want to say that we're there, and we're there to help as well in this issue of the giving acting person to the results of the Bougainville referendum, and help you as we can. So don't hesitate to ask. But I want to come back to your comment about the time for the world to actually work with countries like yours in this context. That is very difficult, and we are there, and we will provide platform for that very shortly. So thank you. So I want to now ask. I'll ask, before I give the floor to the permanent representative of Papua New Guinea, I'll ask the resident coordinator of Papua New Guinea to give an answer to a question that was raised by the ambassador of Australia. So, sir, Mr. Resident Coordinator, you have the floor. Mr. Rampola, you have the floor.
Ambassador Blanchard, thank you very much. And Ambassador of Australia, thank you so much for your question. First is an appreciation to your own government. And as the Deputy Prime Minister mentioned, we have worked in coordinating the response of all partners, bilateral and multilateral. We are the interface by chairing the development partners, disaster management team between the government and development partners. There are millions that have been mobilized. $36 million are going to be channeled in agreement with the government and Department of Health by the UN, mainly in the area of procurement of medical equipment, PPEs, isolation wards, ventilators, tests, and you name it. And we've been providing, of course, the technical lead to the Department of Health through WHO, but we also have a massive campaign around the risk communications that is going to be led by the UNICEF. We have managed to rally support from the World Bank, Australia, as I mentioned, New Zealand, Japan, the US government, the European Union, India, and the list goes on. There's, of course, a number of secondary areas that need the support, concerted support of international partners. And through the humanitarian coordination team, we have mobilized resources, especially to focus on water and sanitation, nutrition, and it doesn't go without saying, protection, especially of the most vulnerable, women and children. And then last but not least, we're working closely with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank into carrying out a socioeconomic impact assessment that will then provide for the basis on which government and development partners will discuss about policy and priorities within the framework of the stimulus package and the macroeconomic response to the economic crisis.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll ask now if any of the briefers want to say anything, we could. So I will ask first Deputy Prime Minister or any honorable ministers. Anyone wants to say or add a few comments before I ask the Deputy Secretary General to say a few words.
Thank you, Sir, for convening the conference today again and giving us the opportunity to truly express our gratitude and appreciation, especially to the Deputy Secretary General again for prompting many positive outcomes, including the dialogue today. That gives us the chance to highlight a lot of the points that have been expressed, but with appreciation for the Peace Building Fund and support from our bilateral partners. The discussions today from distinguished leaders from within our Pacific region and friends from nations afar is really encouraging. And a lot of the points you have expressed will give us courage and galvanize our intent, as I said earlier, to continue the peace building process on Bougainville. And finally, I express my personal review and also the view of my government that was expressed by our friends from Fiji, that the Bougainville peace process really gives us in the community of nations, in the United Nations, the opportunity to showcase solidarity and reaffirm the United Nations mandate in maintaining a peaceful world. And so far, that has been the story, and that's something that I wish to thank you all for, and to hope towards ensuring that we all continue the dialogue towards a successful finality of the process. Thank you indeed.
Thank you very much. And now I'll ask give the floor to the Deputy Secretary General for a few words of closing.
Thank you, Marc-Andre. This has been really fantastic and nothing less than what I expected. The Peace Building Commission is essential to the work that we are doing in collaborating with PNG for a peaceful and prosperous future. So I really am very excited about this meeting. The opportunities we have with COVID, it is a huge challenge. It's a human crisis, I know, but let's focus on the opportunities we can take. Stimulus packages that can be put together, the fiscal gaps filled, and let's see how we can spend that on strengthening the systems, on ensuring that young people and women, and there is an inclusive way of moving forward. This is not going to be an issue of a day or weeks or months. This is for the long haul. And I think that has to go into the thinking of supporting Papua New Guinea. It's a collaboration. It's a society that is evolving, and it needs support to do that. So this is about the long haul. In the investments that we make, we must have an integrated response to that. It can't be one or the other. Otherwise, we will lose the gains of any one of them if we do so. So addressing climate action can address sustainable development. It can deal with many of the issues that actually exacerbate peace many a time. I want to thank the government and the people of PNG, especially the women and the young people. Please extend my greetings to them. And I won't end, I would like to end with really expressing my appreciation to the PR in New Zealand, in Australia, because you know, the conversations we had before I went there really did help me when I got there to see a balanced view of how we could go in and observe and experience PNG and come back out with a constructive response and reply for you. The work, of course, of Ireland is much appreciated in PNG. And last but not least, there is a wonderful UN team in Papua New Guinea who work 24/7. And Gianluca, please express my deepest appreciation to them, who made the visit worthwhile for me and my two colleagues, the youth envoy and Winnie Banyama from UNAIDS. Thank you, Marc-Andre, for giving this opportunity to speak with you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General, to be with us. And I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Max Ufanen Rai, who is the permanent representative ambassador of Papua New Guinea to United Nations. Max, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Marc-Andre. It only remains for me to thank you very much for this really wonderful and outstanding meeting. And all the presenters have made excellent presentations. And I'm sure my delegation, myself, and my country will take so much value. They've taken a lot of value out of the discussions we had so far. And I'd like to congratulate and say thank you to DSG Mohammed for her historic visit to Papua New Guinea as the first highest ranking UN official to visit our country. I'd like to also thank all of my colleagues who have made announcements to contribute to the Peacebuilding Commission, because Papua New Guinea has benefited from the Commission over the years, and we are very grateful to what the Commission has done. Let me also thank all my colleagues who have made comments today. I have taken note of your comments, and I want to thank you very, very much, and we'll work together. And finally, I want to thank our partners who have been contributing over the years as far as the Bougainville peace process is concerned, especially Australia, New Zealand, Japan, US, China, European Union, UK, and others. I would like to thank Morocco also for the recent bilateral arrangement that we have signed that would add a lot of value to the ongoing process of nation building and peace building on Bougainville. With that, I would like to thank you very much for the great discussions we had this afternoon. Thank you, Marc-Andre.
Thank you very much, Max, and thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister and honorable ministers and DSG and the resident coordinator and everyone, and dear colleagues, ambassadors and permanent representative and DPR and everybody and the experts. Thanks for everything. That was a great discussion. And please, as Deputy Secretary General said, you know, this is all about solidarity, and now it's time to define and determine all together, the entire world, at this moment of crisis, what we mean by solidarity. And it certainly includes working very, very closely with our friends in Papua New Guinea. So thank you very much, and best regards to the people of Papua New Guinea. Our heart and our minds and everything is with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, DSG.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being there.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.